and then work left to right. If you have 3 rows, the first row is going to be the most time consuming because you're going to be a little bit off on some stuff, and you're going to start and have like 5 panels installed, and then step back and look at it and say, no, I'm starting to go downhill a little bit, and it starts at that third one. So you take the last, 3, 4, and 5 off, and then you adjust them a little bit. But take your time with the first row. It might be a little frustrating, but once you get that looking nice, everything else after that is going to go a lot smoother. Sometimes if you have, you have your second panel here, and then you have the other 2 panels mounted up below it, and sometimes those will get off a little bit. Just be mindful of that. Aesthetically from the ground, you probably won't ever notice it, but sometimes you can get a little bit carried away. That's why it's good to start with that first row nice and square, and then we actually put down the next starters for the next row to get that nice corner established, and then that makes everything go quite smoothly. So,
Kind of leave an inch between panels.
yep. What you have is, from the end here, you have a 1-inch clip that, your panel ends here, but then you still need at least 1 inch of rail for the end clip to hold on to it. And we always cut these things 1.5 inches, 1 3/4, even 2 inches, because that little bit hanging out is nice, because sometimes your second column of panels gets off a little bit and you start cheating towards that one end. But again, you line up these rails first and square them as best as you can, and most of the time you can measure off to start your panel, and that helps out pretty good. And then the other side of the rails, we just let them run wild. We don't worry about them until the end, and we'll come up and with a nice sawzall blade, cut them off nice and cleanly, and then go back through and tighten those last clips on again, because they might loosen up by the blade binds a little bit and shakes the rail. But each panel itself, as you're actually laying out in your mind your roof, each panel itself account for a 1-inch clip in between, 1-inch mid clip or 1-inch space. So if it's a 40-inch panel, every time you're doing the math in your head, think 41. And then up and down, we put the 65 inches. We always like to give ourselves 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch, because sometimes if one row does get a little bit crazy on you, you can kind of clean it up on the next one. And when you're standing back looking at the roof, you're never going to notice a little bit of a difference. Splice bars I have in there, new codes that have come, not new codes, new engineering that's come out. Usually you have to, if you have a 20-foot rail and you need another 10 feet, you have to put a splice bar in, put another rail in, and then you have to bond across that metal joint with a little piece of wire. You don't have to do that anymore. Most of the manufacturers, if not all of them, their splice rail bonds everything also. So you just tighten down and that continuous bond with everything. There's bonding gloves, which is one of these guys. And all that does is, say we've got 3 rows of panels, 3 rows of 10 panels. Each panel itself, there used to be what they have to call weaves that you have to put underneath each one of these. You tighten down the panel and it pierces the anodized aluminum of the actual panel, and then it also pierces the aluminum of the rail in order to maintain all this continuous bond for everything. Great invention, but now all these clips, instead of being nice smooth clips, have really aggressive teeth on them. So when you tighten this thing down, it bites into the rail and bites into the panel, and you don't need those weaves anymore. So that makes installation go a little bit faster. The fact that you don't have to worry about these splices, installation goes faster, and it's less things you have to worry about or remember in your mind or write down notes for. But the one thing that isn't bonded or bonds everything together electrically is if we have 3 rows of 10, these rails are going to be bonded together through the panels, and all the lags and everything are bonded, and the panel one to the next, that's great, but there's nothing that bonds this rail to the next rail to the next rail or the next row of panels. So what you have to do is take one of these little bonding gloves, which I have in a picture of in my hand there. It has one of those little weave things that bite into the aluminum. It just slides in here, tightens down in 7/16 torque specification on that. I'm not quite sure what that would be, but that's something you could actually hear the little pimpling of the aluminum a lot of times. You'll actually hear a little ping in there. You don't want to over tighten because the stainless steel will break on you. And you don't want to tighten them up super fast. That's why I brought up this. People tighten it down really fast with the stainless, creates galling. It's called galling. So that just heats up and just basically welds the stainless together, and then you can't get it undone, you can't loosen it. So some people put Loctite on their stuff, but we just are cautious to tighten it down slowly. But so you tighten down with one of these bonding lugs that bonds this rail. This rail is already bonded to that rail through the panels themselves. So we just take our copper bonding wire, just plain bare copper, and put it right in here, tighten down the 7/16 bolt to create a good connection, and then we just run that down to the next rail. Skip this one because this one's already bonded together through the panel. To the next one, crank down on that, and as many rows of panels that we have, we need to just make sure we have at least one of them grabbed with the aluminum. In bonding wire, we did, number 8 is code to use. Number 8 is the smallest that you can use. You can use something bigger like 6 or 4, and we recommend that you use 6 because you could run number 8 behind the rails, behind the panels, because that's considered concealed. Once you break out from behind the panel, it's no longer concealed, and therefore you need to run something like number 6 in order to be able to run freely in case someone's running a weed whacker down low on the ground or subject to physical damage. So we just say get number 6, because if you're only doing this once, who really wants to have half a coil of 8 and half a coil of 6 laying around? Just get 6 and run it all behind it, and then where you break out, if you're running conduit down the side, you can just zip tie it to that. You can run it in the conduit if you want, but that still kind of keeps you free to.
You can't run your copper and conduit. You're not supposed to.
Not supposed
Like
to.
code, you're not. Am I correct on that?
Oh, are we allowed to run bare copper in conduit?
I believe not. I'm 99% sure on
We do it all the time. What's that?
I wouldn't know off the top of my head.
that.
Yeah.
I'm 90% sure.
Gabe, here's where you shine, buddy.
I wouldn't think you couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issues with it.
Oh, I've done it, I'm just.
Oh.
Hold on. So,
I've never come across that.
not by an inspector, but.
Well, and any of the things that, code book, anything like that, or even inspectors saying, you shouldn't really do that. No. So, after you have your panel set up, after you have your rail set up, your flashing, everything's attached, everything's nice and sturdy. You started with your straight line down the side. You take your measurements and you know, okay, the panels I'm looking at 40, 41 inches wide. Well, I need to have my inverter in the back of this panel. So 40, 41 inches wide, I want to measure off where my panel is going to start and measure about 20 and a half inches. A lot of times we'll actually offset these by another quarter of the panel itself. That way, because remember there's a little junction box on the back of this. So sometimes trying to get these wires pulled out and plugged in there. A lot of times, so we'll measure off of one side and then try to mount the inverter right about here on the rail itself, and that way it gives you a little bit of room to plug it together. What we'll do is we'll go through and on the top rail of each row, we'll just put a little X with the Sharpie on the rail itself. That way no one can see it from the bottom. And we'll go through and just mark out, okay, from that first 20 and a half inches or 22 inches, then we'll go another 41 and another 41 and 41 on down the line. And then we'll come back through, mount our inverters, which these inverters are just mounted with a simple 7/16 nut and bolt, friction washer, and a lot of the manufacturers of these, you would have to put one of those weaves in there. Now you don't, because they're all bonded through the AC trunk cable. So that's a nice little feature that they have now too. A a lot less components, a lot less things to fumble with your fat fingers and fall off the roof and be looking through someone's hedges trying to find that last piece you need to finish for the day, which happens all the time. And it's frustrating, but, what time's that say back there?
8:45.
Quarter till, okay. Do we have any other questions on that?
You rented the body wire through.
These 250 watt,
These are actually 215 because this was installed probably 6 years ago.
Yeah, at least.
But yeah, what you would be seeing would probably be the 250 to 265 range for your panels.
is that pretty much a standard size? That it's,
As far as cost comparatively, that's standard size. If you want to go, if you're willing to spend an extra couple bucks, we can go up to, for the same footprint, 310, 315 watts.
Yeah, the size that's the cheapest per watt keeps changing. So as manufacturers get more density, they increase the power that a single panel of the same size can produce. So, you know, 3 years ago, 4 years ago when I installed my system, it was 235s. 6 years ago it was 215s. Today is 250, 255. You can always get more premium panels, but then you have to make sure your inverter is sized right for that panel. So most of these in-phase inverters are 250s watt inverters, so they work well with the 250 watt panel. They might work okay with the 255 watt panel, but they probably won't work with the 280 panel.
so it sort of works out like a 10 square foot per watt. Surface.
Yeah, you can do the math like that. Yeah.
That's not the way I usually think, and usually he thinks for me on the roof when it comes in on that. So we mount our inverters, you know, we have our X's on the top, we're able to go through and mount all of our inverters. There is a little bonding lug here, because at the time you had to, with this model, you have to bond wire across all these, or bond it to the rail, but you don't have to do that with the ones you'll be getting, which is the end phase. Then we come through and lay out our trunk cable, and then we actually go through and click all of them in. There's little stickers here with serial numbers. So as you're doing this, after you have everything laid out, you can just take a piece of cardboard and with a Sharpie draw a grid of what your solar array looks like, and then come through and sticker each one, so that way in your mind, you know where each inverter is, so that way when it comes time to enter your online data, so you know, so you can check it on your iPhone or on your PC, you can tell, oh, okay, if you have 50 panels on your roof, and you say, oh, inverter 12678543119 is malfunctioning, you say, I don't know which one that is, I got 1 in 50 shot. It's good to know those things. And then you could also take that, and as you're writing that, leave also space, because each one of these has a serial number too. So you write down the serial number of that as you go through, and it just makes a nice, simple way to look at your system. If there is an issue in the future, you could always just say, oh, well, this panel plus, you don't have to climb on the roof for a warranty and say, okay, this is, and then try to figure out what the number is. You just call them up without even getting on the roof and saying, I can see the, you know, a tree fell on my roof, I lost 3 panels, I need to replace these 3. And know exactly what the serial number is, or warranty for the serial number.
And it's a panel in the middle.
How do you get that? You'd lay out a piece of plywood or 2, depending on how you gotta get there. Try to, depending on how steep it is, I mean, you don't want to be laying out a piece of plywood on a real steep roof. But, do the best you can to disperse your weight. We've actually done it before. We haven't had to replace one in the center. We only had to replace 1 panel before. It was actually our own system, so that was nice. You know, I didn't have to upset customer at us, but, laid out over the panels and actually put our weight on the, where we know the rails are, and then put our feet on like more so the mid clips or the mid area, so that way you're dispersing your weight onto 2 separate panels and it's the rail right underneath it. That way you're not pushing right here and flexing that at all and disturbing that at all. But yeah, you know, kind of Spider-Man it pretty good. Yes?
If you put it through ground mount, how susceptible are these to frost and heat?
If they're installed correctly, each ground mount manufacturer will give you specifications. The ground mounts we like to use are just a big steel I-beam that goes into the ground 55 inches or whatever, 16-inch sonotube that goes down even deeper than that, and I mean all filled with concrete. So that's not, if it's below your 42-inch frost line, you're definitely not going anywhere. And nice big steel I-beam comes out with an arm that comes out, and then a rail that goes from the arm to the top of it, and then you just have all your rails go across it.
So that's for
Yeah, you don't want, I actually had a service call the other day for a guy up in Damascus that had his put in 2009 from somebody in like Lancaster or something like that. He didn't know anybody in the area was doing it. But, and you could see where they just sunk the 2-inch galvanized pipe into the ground and then just dumped a bag of concrete around the top of it. And it's like, okay, when frost goes to heave something, it just made it a lot easier for it to heave because now you've got a nice big mushroom top to push up with. So you can see some of his concrete piers are lifting and stuff, and he seemed to be fine with it. But that company's out of business now, so that's why it called me to fix the issue.
How flexible are the panels and the rails? If that does happen.
They're flexible. They can bow and twist in what they call potato chip. But yeah, they are flexible, but it's not ideal to be doing that. Like on an old barn roof or just a really terrible roof, you can work these rails. If you see here, there's 2 different holes in this L foot. So with those 2 different holes, it's actually an oval. And if say you're going across the roof and there's a big hump in the roof, well, you could start with the highest point of that rail, of that hole being in the highest point of the L foot. So, and then as you come across, all of a sudden that hump's there, and then you might be able to transition lower, lower, lower until you're into the whole bottom oval as you get to the highest point of that hump, and then as it breaks out again, transition back up. So that's a way to alleviate that and put as less stress on the panels as possible, and just makes for a cleaner, nicer job. So, yes.
How do we decide who so much we need?
You pull out your wallet and look and say, how much money do I have?
Actually, the handout goes through that process with you. The handout we gave, yeah, if you got one,
Yeah, but I thought
read that, and I'll be glad to walk you through it or help. But,
Do you have
there
any
ends
more
up
of those?
being- Yeah, there's some more. There's also on our website, it's a PDF file.
There's information how to look at that. Typically, Pennsylvania, if you're $130 a month, that would be probably a 10 kilowatt array, roughly.
Look at your utility bills. The best model is to look at your utility bills and figure out your annual usage.
They'll be on your utility bill. If you look at it, it'll say like annual usage, or it'll say from, or it'll be June 21st, it'll say, if your bill is dated June 21st, it'll say since June 21st.
I just thought maybe head off the top of your
The
head.
average Pennsylvania home uses 10.4 megawatt hours annually. So that would be 9 kilowatts at least, if you were in full sun.
Yeah,
Less
so
if you get some shade.
it'll give you a calculation of the last year or sometimes 2 years. And between those, you evaluate and say, okay, I'm using 10,000 kilowatt hours in a year. I need a 10 kilowatt system. Or or usually those numbers compare pretty.
Yeah, you can, that would be a 1,000 factor. In the white paper, it talks about the yield factor. The worst case is about 1,000 in our area. That's got some shading or some offset from pure south or different angle tilt. The PV watts is the whole section in the white paper talks about how to go to a National Renewable Energy Labs website called PV Watts to get a real model that says this will be your annual production if you put a system in of this size and in this orientation. So you can go through that, or I can help you as part of our solar assessment. We'll do it too.
And with that, just as a side note, if you have all electric heat or all electric heat, you're not going to cover your electric demand with solar. You know, we could pass this around if you want. We have customers coming to us all the time saying, I've got a $500 a month electric bill. Right here. How can I want to put a dozen panels on my roof and sell back to the utility company and retire. It's not going to happen. As I just said, about $130 a month is a 10 kilowatt system. That's like 40 of these panels. What we do most of the time is I'll go in, I'll explain what they have going on. We also install mini split ductless heating and cooling systems, Fujitsu, Mitsubishi, the name you probably heard too. We install those because that, in an electric heat situation, that drops your electric heat demand to about a third of what it was before. So then once we bring that electric heat demand into spec, then we put up a solar array. And that's one of the first things we try to encourage people to do also, is not just, you know, in our company, plumbing, heating, electric, you know, heat pumps, water pump, we do a wide variety of things. I was talking to Chuck about his water pump just before. So we don't come in, and it's not like, all we do is solar panels, and you call me, so I'm gonna sell you on a solar system. No, I've come here to help you with whatever issue you have, and the first thing to do would be to drop that energy demand and install some mini split heat pumps. It's gonna be about a third of the cost of this system, and it's gonna, the return on investment is gonna be so much faster. So once you reduce that footprint, reduce that demand, then you can come back and do it your solar system and cover your electric bill after that.
Yeah, your return on investment is going to be much better than any kind of efficiency or reduction of load before you try to buy solar, a big solar system to make up for that. So seeds is one of our themes in seeds, is you always want to get more efficient and conserve. That will always pay back sooner than generating your own. Okay, so it's going to be better to save energy before trying to generate it.
More for electricity, of course, than
That's right.
I just have two questions that may not pertain to this area. This handout, where it says the price comparison for installation, is that the rate, the going rate, or is that just for argument's sake, so to speak? It's hard, and I'm not trying to take away from your experience and your costs and everything. I can't swallow 75% markup for 2 days labor. I'm just trying to justify where that would come into play.
What I'll say is at Blair too, is every construction site is different. Steeper roofs may require lifts. So when you see rules of thumb, recognize that it's covering all kinds of conditions. And it's not just the roof work too. You got to do the work in the basement and everywhere else.
No,
and the paperwork and the sales overhead, and just so there's a lot of things that goes into the cost of installing.
Well, this is actually cheaper than the Home Depot scam that wanted 160% markup because they were giving me a 10-year warranty. And that's another problem I'm trying to figure out. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm not trying to pick anything apart. What I have a problem with is if there's a 16-year payback guesstimate.
Right.
My concern is some of these have 10-year warranties, so it could be, and I'm not saying that's the case, but this is uncharted water. These things could be destroyed in 12 years. And
With that, what does it say on the handout as far as dollars per watt?
$3, it's roughly $3.50 if I'm correct.
The slideshow, I think, said $3.70 average and $2.
So with that, those
Plus, but
numbers-
that $2 do-it-yourself, that was just the solar related, plus the additional, right, Jack? Plus the additional.
Yeah, with our installations that we do, Jack is the one that wrote up that handout for
Yeah,
us.
so I'm not representing.
No, I just said
Yeah, we're like.
that's why I was asking the question.
What we typically are is around $3 a watt personally. But yeah, 2 days worth of installation. But for us, when we say 2 days, we're usually there at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know. And then
No, please, that's not what I'm not
Yeah.
trying to say it wasn't worth it. I'm just trying to understand it from a cost perspective. Because I'm getting all kinds of prices. This was actually the most reasonable from some of the stuff that, you know, and you know, I'm sure the general will love it. The free solar, free this, free that. Nothing's free.
Yeah.
So, you know, when
So,
you
yeah.
start figuring it out.
With those costs that you're looking at, you know, we are probably about 75 cents a watt cheaper easily for these installations. That's also an average, because there are premium panels out there. SunPower, you talk about, you know, what good's your warranty 16 years later, if it's only warranty for 10 years. We are a dealer for SunPower solar panels, in the business for 30 years, like they are the leader in solar technology, realistically. Their warranty is 25 years across the board for everything. Their expected lifespan is 40 plus years, but with that premium, I mean, you're looking at getting the entire system for $2 a watt, where with these premium solar panels, you're looking more like $3 a watt. And with that, we've got to do a certain amount of quota per year, which we still haven't done for SunPower, but hold on to that dealership, right? But you have to do a certain amount of quota per year, you have to go through all this different training, and a lot of
I
it.
understand, there's a lot of cost perspective on your end. By no means am I saying it, I just, 125% markup for installation, I was going out of my mind with that.
Well, that's Home Depot, they take whatever their approved contractor is and just slap 20% on it or whatever like that, and then that just, they make their money. That's what, like, if you're from New York, how many people are from New York State or New Jersey? Yeah. You have a whole bunch of incentives out there, and everyone, you know, every now and then they say, well, what about Solar City or SunJet or Sunrun? They want to install solar on my house for free, aren't they trying to save the world? They're a financing company, they're not a solar company. They have money, they come to you and they look at the dollars and they do the evaluation and say, okay, we're gonna put solar on your roof, we're gonna own it for 20 years, you're gonna give us some money, you know, on your electric bill, you're not gonna give us anything at all, but the money we make, they're there to make money, they're not there to be your friend. So they're basically just become a middleman for you, and it's a great avenue to choose if we can do these ourselves, we just don't have the fancy name or anything, but we don't, or a power purchase agreement, but we try to educate the customer rather than, you want solar panels, we're gonna give it to you, and this is what we sell, and this is what we, you know, so a lot of times we'll go into a customer's house and say, well, I was talking with Solar City and I don't have to put up anyone, I don't have to do anything. I said, well, that's good, but your panel.
Yeah, Solar City doesn't operate in this parts of Pennsylvania. You know, they've just opened office in Pittsburgh, and they've had an office in Philly for about a year. And those financing companies just don't find it to be competitive in most parts of Pennsylvania.
They're awful.
Because with that, it's like they just have their cut panel and their cut inverter, and this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna install it, we're gonna get, you know, because the installer for Solar City, SunJet, all these places are in and out the door as fast as they can to make more money, where we go in and say, okay, do you want the low-end panel? Do you want, not even, I mean, we don't even sell a low-end panel. Do you want a quality panel for the 250 watt price, or do you want a 350 watt panel with a great warranty, great this, great that? It's your decision. It's up to you. And the return on investment is so much faster, so why not cut out the middleman? But we find whenever we look at like national average or even state average for installations, we find that it's like, man, we should, you know, we should move or something, because we're not charging enough for these solar arrays the way we do to make money. But yeah, Pennsylvania, you don't have any leasing company or power purchase agreement companies. You don't have any of those because New York has a state tax credit. They have a state rebate program. If you're low income, they have a low income program also. They also have the federal tax credit. When you add all those things up, these leasing companies come in there and take all that incentive and then give you the solar array and then make some money in the process, and then the system is yours. But Pennsylvania, they look at the federal tax credit and then they look at nothing else and they say, the heck with that, there's no money to be made here. 16-year return on investment, I can't. Why bother?
So it's not easy, and it's not getting easier. We're in Pennsylvania, we're lucky in some sense that natural gas is so cheap right now. The electricity prices from the utilities have been falling for the last year and a half. You know, PPL's default rate is a penny less than it was a year ago. So that makes the return on investment longer when you can start at a lower price point.
Yeah.
And who knows what electricity prices are going to do in the next 15 years. They could shoot through the roof, or they could continue to fall if fracking or whatever continues to provide excess natural gas that we can't export.
Money you spend is current dollars and the electricity is going to be later.
Right, right. So you know, the spreadsheet that I produced for the white paper tries to go through all those options. It's still a model, and it doesn't account for everything. But I'll be glad to walk you through the details. I can tell you I've spent way too much long. I was deeply involved in the cooperage PV system that the Clean Energy Co-op financed. It's all kind of challenges making the financing work. So I would like to answer your questions.
One last thing is then, just, I think we're.
Yeah, we're
by
fine.
minutes. So basically, you just start putting up your panels, put them in together. Okay, you know, put your mid-clip, make sure you put them together, because if you forget, you'll know when it comes time to troubleshoot it, you'll have to take some panels off to get under there and click them. But click them and zip tie everything up together, and that brings you out to your ACN, and we can pick up there tomorrow, for those of you that are still interested in coming.
So, we'll stick around a little bit to answer one-on-one questions, but we'll spend more time with you kind of, hopefully individually tomorrow. So remember your homework assignment if you want to go to the next step. Bring a drawing, kind of laying out where on your roof or in your yard this would be. Read the white paper, come back with your questions. You'll forget half of what we said tonight. We'll review it tomorrow. We'll spend more time up here on the roof. We're going to disassemble this and start from scratch. Okay? So
If you are New York State, it's probably more cost effective to have somebody else put it on your roof at this time.
the incentives aren't eligible
Yeah,
for.
unless you really want to do it yourself, then that's fine, but, also if you're in Sullivan County itself, by the fall, they should be coming out with a Solarize Sullivan campaign that they get together a whole bunch of installers that they approve, and then get a nice rate from them and all this stuff, but it's supposed to be a little bit cheaper, but, so, and you could, yeah, you could find, our name should be on there, we're still going through the approval process, so. It's just, like, they just released the paperwork this past week, so, if you are thinking about it, New York State, Sullivan County, you might want to wait a little bit to go ahead and pull the trigger, so. Thanks again, and enjoy your night, we'll be.